Hi, this is Ivy Maddox, and you're listening to Tanya Tate Presents Skinfluencer Success Podcast.
This is Tanya Tate. Skinfluencer Success. You are listening to Tanya Tate Presents Skinfluencer Success. How can making goals become your reality? My guest is a performer from the UK who ticked off one of her bucket lists in the first week in the adult industry. Welcome, Ivy Maddox, to the Skinfluencer Success Podcast.
Hi, Tanya. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Ivy. It's so nice to have you on here. And this is like the first time, like we've talked before, but this is the first time that we've like properly sat down and properly had a chat and like really get to know more about you. So tell everyone, who is Ivy Maddox and how did you get started into the world of sex work?
Ivy Maddox, it's me. And when I was at university, I was studying digital media design, and I did enjoy it, but I was mainly there to kind of like move out and go and enjoy university like experience and stuff. And I joined the cheerleading team whilst I was there, and I loved that because I was a cheerleader from like the age of 7 growing up, like all through university. So yeah, that was really, really fun. But I also, as a side hustle, joined the local strip club and started working there, which I also enjoyed because I love dancing. I've always loved dancing. I've enjoyed performing, and and I enjoy the money as well, of course. But the cheerleaders on my team found out, and they weren't so happy about it. So I actually got cut from the cheerleading team, which was really sad at the time. I was pretty upset by it because I really enjoyed going to the competitions and the team spirit, I guess. In the end, I managed to make a positive out of it because I kept the cheer kit and I made it into a little stripper outfit. So
The cheer team have kicked you out. They're like, okay, you are too sexy. We're not putting up with this because you're stripping. And you're like, okay.
There was another person who worked with me who was a nurse, and she got kicked out. She got kicked out of her actual degree. Like, so my story wasn't as bad as hers. Like, she wasn't allowed to do her that year. She had to retake it. I think they were saying that she wasn't shouldn't be doing nursing if she was doing that work as well, which I think is just really, really not okay because it's sex work is work as well. And I think it's more the fact that she felt like she couldn't survive on the student loan alone. I think that's what the problem was, rather than what she was doing for work.
I think that's like a big problem, isn't it? Like, people, women, men, we do one thing, and then to support it, like, we think, okay, we'll turn to a form of sex work, and then somebody finds out and they're like, we are not okay with you doing that form of sex work. Even though it's like, we pay our taxes, you're in a strip club, the strip club are paying business rates, they're paying taxes, they're part of the economy. Yeah, there are certain people that are going to be like, we don't want you to do this, and we don't want to be part of this.
Yeah, I think that especially like the point that you made about taxes, it's really difficult when there's this stereotype that sex workers don't pay taxes, but it's incredibly difficult for us to get like a bank account, for us to get like a loan. We get shut down on like online payment platforms all the time. There's an incredible amount of financial discrimination. So it doesn't help the fact that there's that stereotype as another layer. But when we actually want to just see it as a normal job.
It is, for me, I see it as a normal job, and I totally pay my taxes. My accountant is so strict.
Yeah.
It's like everything goes in. But yeah, I always
my mum's actually my accountant.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, I mean, we used to be the accountant at my school. And so that's, I think, why I've got such bad money management, because she's always like helped me out with it. Like my mum knows everything I do, and she was around here earlier actually. So
So is it your mum was she aware of it when you started stripping in the clubs when you was at university? Is that the time that you kind of introduced her, or was it a bit later on?
well, I was doing it at university and my mum didn't know. And then I came back from university and I wanted to go and do a ski season, which I'll go into in a second. But I was like, oh, I need some money. And I moved back home away from the where the university was. So I wasn't going into that strip club anymore. And my mum actually suggested, she said, well, there's a new strip club that's opened like in our town or the next town. Why don't you go and do that? And I think she was saying it as a joke, because at the time I was working in a fish and chip shop, and I just kept moaning about it. I came home, I stank.
You
It was just
smell of
about,
fish and
well,
chips.
they made me take
I
out. I used to have like my nose ring, and I had like a septum piercing and stuff, and they made me take it out, and it like closed up on shift, and I was really pissed off about it. And I had like my hair dyed like pink at the time, I think, and they didn't like that. But yeah, I started working. My mum dropped me off at the strip club, and she didn't know that I had already done it, and I thought it was like a kind of playing chicken with me to see if I would do it, which it kind of was. And she's like, okay, I'll wait outside, and if you don't like it, then you can come out. And in the end, I went in and I texted her. I was like, I'm fine, you can leave. And it was fine. And I carried on working at the fish and chip shop for like about 2 weeks. And then the boss at the fish and chip shop actually came into my work, and I was like, hi, surprise. And he was like, oh my God, I had no idea. He's like, I wasn't here and neither were you. And I was like, I'm not embarrassed. And he's like, well, you can't really work at both, because like, I had seen people that I'd also served in the ship. I was like, and and he was like, okay. He's like, we're in a bit of a pickle here. Like, I don't think, he's like, you probably earn more here, right? And I can tell you don't really enjoy the fish and chip shop. I was like, hey, but he was right. So in the end, I ended up taking him to VIP and didn't go back to the fish and chip shop. But he came back to my work to see me. He missed me.
Well, that was nice. I worked in a fish and chip shop years ago, and I can remember I got £1.70 an hour.
Oh
It
my
was
God.
like my first job, £1.70, like fish and chip shop or strip club, And that was nice of him to take you to the VIP, and I'm sure he paid you a lot more than the fish and chip shop rate that night.
Certainly did.
So, I mean, that decision was made for you. It seems that was a good decision. The just the salary, just the enjoyment thing.
Yeah.
So what happened? You moved on and you started snowboarding.
Yes. So I wanted to go and do a snowboarding season. That was something that I hadn't done since from a young age, but I'd gone on like a day where you like try it out with like a friend, and I like really really enjoyed it, and I was like, oh, this is great. And I'd heard from friends at uni who had like done a snowboarding season and then gone to uni about like how fun it was, and I was a bit of a party girl at the time, and I was like, oh, that sounds great, like I can go and party and just like do a bit of work and go snowboarding all the time. And I ended up going and doing that and basically living my best life for like 4 years, I think, however long it was. But I was going from northern hemisphere to southern hemisphere. I started off in Austria, then I went to Australia, and then back to Austria, New Zealand, Japan, and then to Austria again. I really liked Austria. That's kind of my like.
Wow.
I still go back there to this day, like where I spent the most time. And then I did like a summer season in Les Alpes, and I broke my neck in l'Avalanche there.
Oh wow.
So the Avalanche is actually a nightclub in Les Alpes. It's not an avalanche; it's l'Avalanche, as in nightclub.
Okay. I had visions of you on a snowboard coming down a mountain and an avalanche coming behind you and kind of.
Yeah, I wasn't so into like off piste. Like when I was in Japan, obviously there like the snow is incredible. It's the best snow in the world. Like the off piste there is amazing, but I was always a park rat, which meant that I don't know if you ever watch the Olympics and you see them going off on the rails, like the metal things, and off the jumps. So I was really into that. So I should have broken my neck in the park. However, I was really good, so I managed to not. I ended up breaking my neck when I was drunk at pre skiing, which was really, really
Wow.
dumb because at the time I was on a filming trip and I was competitively snowboarding. So I was kind of
Yeah.
I was doing really well. Like I managed to get really good in a really short space of time. I think that the cheerleading helped me and like my balance and just I can't think of the word when you coordination. That's it. So
Yeah.
yeah, and just like having this kind of like fearless mentality of just like, oh, I'm just going
Mm.
to try it. And there's so much footage of me like just absolutely throwing myself at huge things and like rails and stuff like that, and just like having falling over and doing it again, doing it again. But yeah,
Mm.
I managed to go on this trip where we were filming, and we were sponsored by a brand, so we were doing some promotion for them. And yeah, I was celebrating a really good day. I'd landed a new trick on camera, and we went out for a beer. Everyone else left, and I ended up staying out. And I climbed up a pole. I was still wearing my ski outfit, so I think I had all the tequila in the club, and I climbed up a pole, and I ended up going upside down and sliding straight down, landing on my neck, blacking out, being helicoptered out of
Oh,
the avalanche, which was not an actual avalanche, but it was a club. Um, for
wow.
years and years, I lied about it, and I said that I did it on whilst doing a trick. But I think it's important for me to like acknowledge that that was a turning point, because I had a bit of a problem with drinking. Like, as I said, everyone else like managed to just have a beer and then go home. I lied and said I was going home, but I like once I had one, I was like, I've got to have more, I've got to have more. So I think
Mm.
that was a turning point for me, where I realized that, oh, this was something that I like really, really loved and wanted, and I managed to be the reason that it was taken away from me, and it took me a long time to kind of be okay with that.
So that it must have been like a big turning point. It's like, you know, I think especially when we're younger, we always think we're invincible, you know,
Oh yeah.
and 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 it's like for you, it's you do not seem to have any fear.
I
It's
don't
like for me,
it's kind of scary. Like I don't get embarrassed very easily, and I'm quite fearless, which if you add alcohol into that mix is really dangerous.
yeah, because it's, you know, alcohol already gives you that sense of no fear.
Hmm.
And, you know, if that's your personality as well. So now you're having an amazing time, you're skiing competitively, you're partying with friends, it's amazing life, and then suddenly it's just like bang, taken away from you because you've broke your neck
Yeah,
and you're in hospital.
yeah.
So is, you know, what was it like for you just being there, and and you know, were you strapped up? Did you have all
Yeah, so I didn't realize that I was in hospital or what was going on, because I didn't know what had happened to me because I blacked out. And I woke up in a hospital and everyone was speaking French, and I remember I was just like I was just looking at the ceiling because I was stuck, so I was just like staring up, and they kept coming over and being in French, and I was like, "Je ne peux parler en français, English, s'il vous plaît," which is really bad French, but I was just like, "I want to speak to my
I
mom. I want to speak
understood.
to my mom." And it went from like light to dark to light to dark. I don't know how long I was there for until I was able to contact someone, and then yeah, and then my friend who was in Austria came and basically got me. They said that I could leave the hospital after like a week, and they
Yeah.
took me to my friend took me to a hospital in Innsbruck where I was living, and the doctors there were like they were quite rude about the French hospital, and they were like, you should not have been in a car because you have like you have three hairline fractures, and one of them was missed, and one of them was at the point where if I was in there had to brake suddenly, it would have completely broken. So even though I was in a neck brace and stuff, they were like, it was really dangerous. You shouldn't have been traveling. You should have. They should have. You could have gone home, but like you should have had more tests and stuff. So, anyways, I stayed in Innsbruck Hospital for an extra 2 weeks, and then and then it was like a pretty sluggish, slow recovery. And bearing in mind this was in the summer because I was doing a summer trip to a glacier in the Des Alpes. So I got back to Innsbruck and it's bloody hot, and I've got this neck brace on, and I can't really move. Like my friend was having to help me go to the toilet, go to the bathroom, like wash me and stuff, and I was really, really miserable. And I was obviously like on a lot of medications and things for the pain, but I managed to be able to get up and move and stuff within like I think like 4 to 6 months, something like that. I was pretty much like walking around and stuff. I was still being really careful. I missed out on that season, which I was really upset about, but I was still living in Europe.
That's what I was going to ask. You were still living over there.
Yeah, so, because in my head, I wanted to still carry on with the snowboarding. So in my head, I was like, I can still do this. But by the time I'd got back to snowboarding, I had the fear, and I've never had the fear before. And I don't know, because I hadn't done the accident on the snow. So I was like, oh, I'll be fine. But I was just really worried because it was so painful and scary. And I didn't like being in hospital, and I didn't like not being able to move and having to have other people look after me. So I think danger became very real. And so that's when I kind of was like, oh, and also I wasn't as good as I used to be because I had to, you have to keep these things up. I've been non-stop snowboarding for a couple of years. And when you have like a while out, I think I had like a year out, it was very frustrating that I wasn't as good as I used to be, and I could see all my friends progressing. A lot of my friends went to the Olympics, and I was so jealous. Like I'm, I can admit I was really jealous that all my friends are like still progressing and able to do this, and I was like, oh, damn it, why did my actions do this? So I think that's when I was like, oh, I'm gonna do something else.
So you're seeing all your friends progress, and you're there in that situation that must be like really hard to deal with and really difficult for you to try and keep something positive going on.
Yeah.
So is this when you made the decision to move back to London?
Yeah, because during that time when I was recovering, I was drinking and I was taking this pain medication because I become depressed. So that should have been the point when I'd stopped drinking and I made a turnaround. But it actually was like a bit after that because I was in such a bad place and I was just resenting myself. And when you're just like in this spiral and you can't get out of it. So I was like, I think I'm going to go back to London and try and like get some help and, sort out my brain because my head wasn't right. Like I just wasn't in a good place and I was just getting worse and worse. And so I wanted to be with my family because they've always like supported me and helped me. And I just felt a bit like I don't really have a goal. I don't really have like any purpose in life if I can't do snowboarding. And I just wanted to kind of get myself fixed. So I came back to London and I went back into stripping because it's kind of like what I knew. But it was incredibly difficult to get sober whilst I was in the clubs. So it actually it was COVID that helped me get sober. And I've been sober since COVID essentially. And that was when I decided that I wanted to make a move into adult, I've been in the adult industry, like sex work industry, but like adult film industry, because I've always kind of like had it in the back of my head, but it didn't fit in with like snowboarding because I was like, I had my purpose. And then after I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that now. What should I do? And then I was like, oh, I definitely didn't want to do it when I was like not okay in my head, because if you think stripping is hard, then for your like self-esteem and things, because obviously you have to go and you hear no, and all of like a lot of people that are in the clubs are just like drunk and mean and rude to you and stuff. It takes like a really hard shell. Adult industry, like I didn't have social media before I was in the film, so that takes a whole nother level as well of just like self-promoting, and if you feel like you're having a bad day. So I was like, I really wanted to get my mental health fixed. patched up before I made that move. And I'm really happy that I did, because yeah, I'm really enjoying it and I'm having a really good time where I am now.
So you came back to London. You went into the strip club because that's what you knew,
Mm-hmm.
and you're right. It's kind of difficult, if you're just from going out and being out with friends, and if that's your job as well, where like the customers, the guys are like, sit and have a drink, and it's
Yeah.
I can see that's quite.
It's not just that, the whole club is set up to be dog eat dog. So as soon as you go in, the waitresses want to keep the customers on the floor with them because they're getting tips. The dancers want to take the customers off the floor into VIP because that's where they get paid. So everyone's working against each other, and it's really
Yeah,
toxic environment. And it's only when you're out of it you really understand. Like, well, I mean, I did understand it when I was in it, but I really saw it for how bad it was on my mental health. And I'd been doing that since I was 18, and it had really taken its toll. Like when I was snowboarding, majority of the resorts I worked in, they had a club, because where there are men, there are clubs. And skiing and snowboarding is quite like a manly sport, I guess.
yeah.
I mean, everyone can enjoy it, but it was quite like male heavy in the resorts, I'd say, like lads' holidays and
Mm,
stuff. So yeah, I was in every resort that they had a club nearby. I was doing that, or I was working in a bar. Um, so
mm.
getting by. Actually, my first bar job I got because they asked me, like, do I have any bar experience? And I said no, but I've been in a bar. And they're like, that's not experience. Because I was like, if I've been in enough bars, I know how to do it. And they were like, oh, we're not sure. And I was like, okay, how much do you sell shots for? And they were like, oh, €2. And I was like, if I can sell them for €5, can I keep the rest? And they're like, sure, how are you going to do that? And that night, this is before I worked there, I think I sold like 25 body shots. And I walked out with like so much cash. And they were like, you're hired. We were like, we want her. She's
Come
great.
back.
Yeah. I had like people
Yeah.
coming in just to see me. And my boss, he was Dutch, and he'd teach me all of the wrong Dutch words. So I can speak like really naughty Dutch. But I was thinking that I was saying like, hello, how's your holiday? Are you enjoying your time here? Would you like a drink? Blah, blah, blah. And he would like be around the corner saying, because a lot of the people in the resort I were in this place were Dutch. He'd be like, oh, she's a stupid English girl. I'm teaching her the wrong things. Look at her. She's even got a notebook. She's writing it all down, blah, blah, blah. And like, I went to Amsterdam and I was speaking to a waitress and I said something. She's like, you know what you're saying, right? You know, these is rude words. And I'm like, what?
Oh,
I was actually, I was embarrassed then because I don't like to make
yeah.
other people feel uncomfortable. And she was not happy with me. But
Oh,
I don't get embarrassed if it's just me that's going to take it, I guess.
yeah. It's difficult, being in an environment where there's a lot of drink. And when you said COVID was something, that changed you,
Mm-hmm.
everyone, once it was COVID, it was lockdown. We couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't go to the bar. We
Yeah.
couldn't go out. The clubs were shut down. Everything was shut down. So how was that time for you? Because, did you go like cold turkey, or did you slowly do it, or did you have support?
So I was aware of NA, which is Narcotics Anonymous, and like Alcoholics Anonymous. But I'd been to a couple of meetings like with a friend who had also got sober, but I'd only dipped my toes in. And I knew that they were going online, because I was in like a WhatsApp group and stuff. So I could see what was going on. And I managed to, yeah, just cold turkey essentially. Like I gave my
Mm.
sister my card and my ID because because I was living with me and my sister were in a shared accommodation, um, and I used to get ID'd at the Sainsbury's where we were living. So I knew that if she had my stuff, then I wouldn't be able to buy anything. And yeah, I just basically would sit on Zoom in meetings, like just and over again, and that was then finding community and getting help from people and doing the step work, got a sponsor. um yeah, I just kind of really I became addicted to NA, I say, and that was my like obsession. And just yeah, it worked. it's very cliche. It works if you work it. That's one of the things they say. But it
Yeah.
really does.
Is it, first of all, you've got to acknowledge it, and then you've got to do the work
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
you know?
I knew I'd had a problem for a long time, and the first step was like surrendering and real and like being like, this is greater than me. And I'd known that for a while because I was always the person that, didn't know when to go home. I wouldn't be going out for one drink isn't in my vocabulary. Like having a glass of wine with food and then going home doesn't exist to me. Um, I'm just the kind of person that is like all or nothing. And for me,
Mm,
it's easier doing nothing at all than trying to moderate it, because I've been trying to moderate it and failing for a number of years by that
mm,
point. And even, my injury, I thought that would be enough to make me stop, but it kind of made it worse because it affected my mental health, and I
mm,
used alcohol and drugs as a crutch to get through my mental health. So I thought, I'm obviously going to be feeling my feelings a lot more raw, but I think I started therapy at that time as well. So I thought, NAAA along with therapy would really, really help. And I'm still doing both of them to this day. And they're really good. I don't do NA as much, but I dip in and out every now and then. Like there's a sex
mm,
worker group that I go to every now and then, and I am still in contact with my sponsor. Like I've done the step work, so we don't like talk every day and stuff. But I am helping other people. So a sex worker today I saw on Twitter said that she wanted to get sober, and I like reached out to her and gave her some links to sex worker NA groups and things like that. So I think I'm still part of NA, as in I'm helping other people, but I'm not
you're
like,
supporting.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Which is kind of similar to what I'm doing with like the union as well. Like I'm not really in it like so much,
So
but I'm still on
let's
board.
talk a little bit about the union. Sorry to cut you up.
Sorry.
So I love this, is that you've been through these life events,
Hmm.
and these life events, and you do things to the max. You go all out.
Yeah,
Um, and then it's like recognizing and surrendering and taking the steps to do it. But now you're in a position to help others, to be like, I've done this journey,
yeah,
and there will be people that are listening right now that are being like, you know they are in sex work, or they may not be in sex work, and it's really inspiring, Ivy, to listen, to be like, for you've been there, you've done it, and it can be done. And
yeah. And
it's
honestly, if
it's
I can do it, anyone could do it. Because if you had told me like all those years ago that I would be sober, I would laugh. Like I didn't think it was possible. Even smoking, like when I first got sober, I didn't think I would be able to ever quit smoking. I was like, oh, I can do the drugs and drink and stuff, but when it comes to smoking, I need that. I haven't smoked in a year. I'm still addicted to nicotine.
nice.
Like, I've got my little spray, but but I haven't smoked an actual cigarette. Like they just there. They
Congrats.
smell now. I don't like them.
Well, Ivy, what is it like? If I could say to you, like, what is it that is, what is in your mind that is keeping you focused? Have you got your eyes on a goal? Is it, how are you doing it? Because someone will be like, well, what is it? What's going on up here?
So I think when I wanted to get sober and stuff, I didn't really have a goal, and that was one of the fundamental problems in my day to day life. I felt like I didn't have a purpose. I felt like, I was just kind of existing rather than living, and it. I knew in the back of my head I wanted to like dip my toe into the adult world, and I had this like I always wanted to do like a movie, and that was like on my bucket list. But I knew I wanted to do it sober, and I wasn't necessarily sure at the time that I wanted to do it as a career. I just knew that I wanted to do it, and I needed to be sober to do it, because otherwise, um, you know, I might not be aware of my boundaries. I might have a bad experience and I might regret it, and I didn't want to have that. So yeah, I've kind of forgotten the question.
We're just moving on. I was interested in knowing, you've kind of answered it, because I want to know
Sorry,
like what was
I went,
going.
my brain, my ADHD brain just like went over here and then like Forgot where I was.
You're doing great. No, I would just wanted to know like what was in your head. And you've just told me you didn't have a goal.
Yeah.
Like you didn't have a goal. So is it once you establish a goal that you want for yourself, was that how you was able to, have that goal, picture that goal, and then visualize it and then aim towards the goal?
Yeah. I think now I couldn't put it into like words, like a singular goal, but I have like milestones and things that I'd like to achieve. So now I'm very focused, and you know, I'm I'm a lot more like driven, and I'm motivated, and I feel good when I've completed something or I've done something. You get like a little, like, you get excited about it, and like, okay, so now what's next? And similarly, like when I had snowboarding as like my passion and my vocation, like when I was doing that, every new trick that I did, that was a little like, oh yay! So you always want to progress, and you can see where you're going with it. But when that was, I didn't have that anymore. Like I was never just motivated by money, which I wish I was. But so stripping for me alone wasn't very productive, because I once I'd hit my goal, I go home. I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to stay through. Like, I'm done. I want to go to bed. So I think if there's something that it is more than just the money, then for me, that's kind of like what I'm working towards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's like a sense of accomplishment. For
Yeah.
every milestone, everything that you get, you feel a sense of accomplishment. You feel a feeling of joy,
Hmm.
and it's the milestone. And I loved that you just mentioned, now we're talking about, you always wanted to make a movie. So I'd really want to talk about that. It's a bucket list. It's something that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So
So I met someone who I was having this conversation, like, so I really want to get into a movie. I don't know how, because I mean, like, I didn't know how, and this person was like, oh, I know an agent in Prague. I can introduce you to her. And so I got introduced to her, and she said, yeah, you can come out. You can do these scenes. They're quite hardcore. And I was like, oh yeah, that's really good, because that's what I wanted to do. I had a specific what I wanted to do, and it involved lots of people and me, and that's all I'll say. Because it's really hard to organise that. I've tried, and it's really hard to organise lots of people and me just for fun, because lots of people don't show up or whatever. So like it's easy, like one, like two or three is fine, but I wanted lots of people. So, anyways, I managed to go to Prague and shoot a movie with lots of people, which is normally something that someone in the industry would move up to, because it's quite hardcore, especially where the people were inside me, I guess.
I love this. It's like we're keeping it very
Very
PG. We're keeping
well.
it very PG, safe it is. So basically, from so here's the thing, when you start in the adult industry and you want to start making movies, sometimes people start off doing solo movies, and then sometimes they might move up and do a collaboration with another male, another
Sometimes
female.
people start off doing webcam. I'm going completely
Yeah.
backwards. I'm going from hardcore, and I'm doing my first scene. Not scene. I'm doing my first shift at Babe Station tomorrow, which is normally like you'd start at Babe Station. An agent would see you on Babe Station, because I think that's where they scout. They would get in contact with you on Instagram, and they'd say, do you want to do a movie? I think that's how it happens.
Yeah, in the UK, Babe Station is like a channel, and you can go on and you can see the girls, and
And it's been
the girls.
around forever. And it's one of them
Yeah,
things that, like,
I've
when you're
been on Babe Station.
But when you're
I've been on it.
yeah, it's like it's been around forever. I remember, like, when you're at school, like, you make jokes like, "Oh yeah, your mum's on Babe Station," or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my goodness.
Like, I'm
So
really
so yeah,
excited. I can't wait. I hope that it's actually on TV. I want to like get someone to take a picture of me on the TV, like, because they've got like the Babe Station positions. Like, I heard you're only allowed to sit in like certain positions or something like that. Is that
oh
is
well,
that just a
yeah,
myth?
it must have changed with me.
Oh,
They just like, just go on,
oh really?
just go on, Tanya Tate, just do your thing. I was like, okay, but yeah, it's they and people can call in as well. So
Yeah,
it was like the shaking of the phone and staring into the camera,
that's it. That's
using
the
the
base
hand
one, yeah.
movements.
Yeah, that's the
Phone me,
basic.
guys. Wink, wink.
Yeah, yeah. I'm well excited. It's gonna be fun. It's iconic.
So moving on, so you got this job, this, this scene, this movie set up in Prague, and you go there, and people like these, it's like gentle toes, and you can build up to different positions, and numerous, they were all guys that you're working with, so there's a lot of positions that guys can go in, and you did basically most things that people don't, not every person gets to do all these things in their career. You basically did them all in your first few scenes.
Yes, which a lot of people have told me since is stupid. But, it kind of fits my personality. Like, I don't do things in half measures. I knew that I could do these things because it was kind of like my fantasy, anyways. And I don't know, I just wanted to like have something that I was really proud of. And it was really hard work. And I still do these things and they're like really, really hard work. And every time I do something like new in them, like I'm always like, yes. So yeah, it's good. And now I'm working backwards and trying to do like more mainstream productions and more like softcore. Because I can say that, can't I? Yeah, I can say that. I
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I like find it a little bit more difficult to do like the the, the less like crazy stuff.
Softly, sensual.
Yeah, yeah, when
Some
you're
of
more like
the
acting
scene.
and stuff, like I find it really fun. At first I thought I would find it boring, and that's why I didn't want to do that as my first scene. Um and but now, yeah, I'm now really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying like the acting and all of the different roles and things. It's really fun.
It's and I want to say, Ivy, you just told me when we were on Patreon, you just showed me when we were on Patreon, you just showed me the picture you had a painting commissioned of like the memory of you being on that scene.
Yeah,
Your
it was so random how I found that artist. So I was a life drawing model for East London Strippers Collective, his London collective of dancers and sex workers, and they do life drawing and on pole. So they have strippers come in and be the models. And there was a person there who did some drawings, and I really liked the style. And I followed her on Instagram, and when I had this idea, and I said to her, I was like, do you have I know that it was life drawing stuff, but I've got this picture that I'd really like to be made into like a big painting. It's quite graphic though. Do you mind? She's like, no, that's fine. Anyways, I went to go and pick it. This is such a random story. I went to go and pick up the painting. Turns out she lives really close to me. We had the same kind of dog. We ended up going on loads of like dog dates together. And then it turns out that she's started an OnlyFans. She's like in the top 1% now of OnlyFans doing like her style of what she does, because everyone was always like telling her, oh, you should do it, because she was always doing like sexy like watercolors and things, but it was in the back of her mind that she was going to do it. So yeah, she's so amazing. I love her. I went to go. She lives in Barcelona now. I've been out to visit her, and she did another painting of me, and we've like just hung out and done OnlyFans content together, which is so random because I remember when I first like messaged her, I was like so scared that she'd be like, "Oh, I'm not doing that. No, that's disgusting. Like, how dare you even message me to ask me to do this graphic picture?" But like, she's
yeah.
just as cool as I am.
Yeah, I like that. It's like sometimes, we are on a life journey and our paths cross with different
Yeah,
people, and I find it really interesting,
yeah.
the people that we meet along. So you've done your really graphic, no holds barred, all in scenes as your very,
I
very
used to
first
think I
scenes.
used to think it was called no holds barred. I got it completely wrong. It's no holds barred, isn't it? I thought it was no holds barred. I got it wrong for ages. Sorry, that's really
It's okay.
embarrassing. I said that.
I've got words wrong. So you did it. It was your bucket list. It was a goal. It gave you something. For you having the sparks, having something that you want to do. And so at what point then did you decide, I want to make more movies, or I want to, make premium social media platforms like OnlyFans?
It was kind of just the fact that I wanted to work for myself, and I decided that I didn't want to go back to the strip clubs because it was hard to navigate them sober and things. And I, yeah, I just everyone like started going on OnlyFans, and I like just started doing that, and then doing collabs with other people, and then yeah, kind of I think the first couple of times I went back to do movies was the same kind of genre, I'd say, that of my first movies. And then, you know, once you kind of meet more people, you get the numbers of other agents, and you kind of work that way. So I found it a little bit slow at the start because I still like didn't really know if I wanted to do it as a career. But now I'm a lot
Mm-hmm.
more like focused, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm being a lot more productive. I was being a bit like kind of just dipping my toe in at first because I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if I liked it because of like the whole online thing. But now, like, I love talking to my fans. Like, it's really nice. I really enjoy chatting to them, and yeah, it's really lovely. I like it.
And it's like, building up a fan base and starting the social media, and then moving it on to the premium social media.
Yeah.
And it's, for us, that is, how we make our living. And I love that you're very supportive of people as well. You're supportive of people that want to find goals, that want to achieve things, like, the way you said that you're helping with other people that are in the adult industry, or sex workers that, may want to get sober, you
Hmm.
know. And I love that you are there because you've been through it and are able to support other people.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about the union as
I
well,
was going to
because you
say
have.
that's kind of similar to my role in the union because
Tell us about that.
so I joined because I had an issue at work myself, and I didn't know that a union for sex workers existed. This is pre-COVID when I was still working in a club, and the girls weren't being treated very well, and ended up I found the union and started organising with them, and yeah, so since then haven't really looked back. And because of my situation, I was able to help other people that have been in similar situations, and we were very like young when I joined the union itself. We were part of United Voice of the World. That was our parent company, and we were called United Sex Workers. We had the first demographically elected committee shortly after I joined, and I applied, and I was elected as membership officer. And I did that role for 3 years, I think. I stepped down
Nice.
recently. But yeah, during my time, we do meetings like every other week, and we organise workplaces that are legal at the moment, so like strip clubs and places like that. But we're also fighting for decriminalisation of sex work. We're also fighting for the decriminalisation of sex work. So everyone that works in places that are currently uh, not legal, like brothels and places like that, like we want everyone to have like the same rights at work and to be safe. So
Mm-hmm.
decriminalisation, it means that everyone's kind of just left alone. We don't want it to be legalised because that's kind of like there's then this two-layered system, and you've always got the people that um, aren't going to benefit from that situation. So like migrant workers, people who aren't able to work legally, they'll also be in precarious situations, even worse than before. And there's also the Nordic model, which we don't want, which is basically the Swedish model, which is where the clients would be criminalised. And we don't want that either, because if the clients are criminalised, there are things that people use at the moment, like screening, like handing over ID or giving over information and things like that. And the clients are a lot less likely to do that if they are at risk of being criminalised themselves. So what the opposition think that it's going to do is get rid of the bad clients, but it will actually get rid of the good guys, and the bad guys are still going to break the law. Like they don't care. Like the bad guys are going to remain, and it's going to put the workers in a lot more danger. So that's just kind of like touching on some of the things we're working on. But yeah, there's been some like great successes.
So the union is UK based. So
Mm-hmm.
there are obviously, if everyone's listening right now, there might be different laws in different countries.
Yeah.
But I think the main part from that is that you are a person that is willing to support others. You mentioned before that you were diagnosed with ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So I want to know for you, because I like to put things out there so people that are listening, it's all about your story and your successes and how you are able to navigate the world. And people that are going to be listening will be like, well, how did she do that? Like, how did she do that? So for you, how does it affect you, and what tools do you have that's able to make you a successful content creator, an adult star?
Uh, I find it really helpful to just have like I'm a list person, so yeah, just having like everything written down, like what I'm meant to be doing. Also, having help from people as well, like reminding me things I'm meant to be doing. Like I will say as well, like people, please nag me. I do not get offended by a reminder because I probably have forgotten, and it's not like because I don't appreciate the offer or anything like that. It's just because it just slips my mind, and I get distracted so easily. But yeah, just kind of just I find that having being motivated is extremely helpful, and just having like some kind of structure. So like I'll go and work abroad for a little bit, and then I'll come back and I'll have like a day or two to reset, and then I'll be like, okay, now I'm going to do my editing, and now I'm going to do my like stuff that I need to be at my computer, my desk for, because I wish that I could do that whilst I was shooting abroad, but to be honest, like I took my computer this time, but I just didn't have the energy for it. And also my computer is really like my laptop's really slow, but my computer at home is like it's much more enjoyable experience to do it on because it's so fast. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
nice to like know that I've got these chunks of time when I'm doing something, and I find it difficult to do more than one thing at a time. So yeah, I think that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. I'm just curious because people will be listening. You'd be like, "You're successful, so how do you do it?" It's like prioritizing lists, doing chunks, and being able to focus. If you're shooting, you focus on your shooting. When you're home, then you're getting time that you're like, "Okay, now is going to be my editing time. Now
Mm-hmm.
is going to be the time that I'm putting in chunks."
Yeah.
And I want to know. I love it that for this, I wanted to talk about goals and bucket lists, and we checked it off, and it was something that you wanted to aim towards. So have you got any future goals that you want to share with us? Anything else that's on your bucket list?
I mean, in general, I'd just like to grow my pages, grow my like brand, I guess. I'd really like to do some more studio work. I'm not going to name the names because this is YouTube, but yeah, like I think I kind of like have done a lot of them. I'd really like to go to America. That would be like an absolute dream of mine to work there. I'm working
Yeah,
towards and getting a visa to do that.
nice. So I love that you've got it on your bucket list. And so I'm gonna ask you, in a sentence, what advice would you give to someone who has goals and dreams that they want to make happen?
Well, I wouldn't be here without the support of my friends and family. I think it's really important. Like, obviously, there are people that, don't have anyone and have to do it on their own. But I personally don't think I could have done it. So, hats off to those people. Like, I just think that with the support of community, um, and whatever that means to you, I think that for me, that is a massive part of helping me get where I am today. The sex worker community, especially, and also like the sex worker sober community. Like, there's loads of sex workers out there that are sober, and it's just a different kind of experience for us to I don't know people that aren't sober. So yeah, they've helped me a lot as well.
So the support from your community and having those goals and having
Yeah,
them written down and
finding your community and having like a goal in your mind, because I think but it's hard to work towards something if you don't know what it is. And that's why I was stuck for so long, because I couldn't picture what I wanted or where I wanted to be. So that's why I was in a bit of a pickle. But yeah, since I've kind of had this, like, it's not necessarily like one goal, but it's a direction. And that's how I see it in my brain. I see it more of like a direction, and I'm doing all of the things at the moment in the right direction. So yeah, a little bit at a time, and to try and not focus too much on like, for me anyways, to try and not get overwhelmed by like things that are too far ahead. I try and focus on like what's today and tomorrow and next week, and just like little by little. But it's also really good to have things to look forward to. Like I've got a content trip in October that I'm looking forward to. So it's nice to have things like that like booked in. But I don't want to get too overwhelmed by thinking like, oh, what am I going to do in 5 years' time? Like, this ain't a job interview. I don't have to answer that question.
You're like, no. So I love it. I ask different guests, different questions, and it's nice that we're all different, and we don't all know 5 years time, 10 years time. Sometimes that's too
Do you
big of
know
a
what I'd
question.
like to be doing in 10 years' time, Tanya? I'd like to be on a yacht, in like just going from island to island, somewhere hot, just spending someone else's money. It's like sipping a virgin mojito, having a lovely time, getting a tan, not having to worry about anything.
Sounds like the perfect life.
Yeah.
Ivy Maddox, it's been so lovely having you on here. And thank you for your time. And will you tell everybody where they can find you online?
Yes, you can find me on my social media. So my Instagram is at Ivy_Maddox_, and my Twitter is at Ivy_Maddox. You can also find all of my socials at www.ivymaddox.vip.
Perfect. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
Yes.
Yes.
This is Tanya Tate. Skinfluencer success. Visualize.